webinar in our fashion mobile marketing series. One of our directors here at HitSearch, Andy Donaldson, will be talking you through the biggest e-commerce mobile marketing trends and how you can use them to connect with your mobile customers. The webinar should last around 40 minutes or so, and we'll be taking any questions you have at the end. Also, if you've missed the first webinar in this series, you can actually access a recording of that on our TV and radio section of the site. It looks like everyone has at the moment, but if you could just keep your phone muted, that would be great. And I'll just pass you on to Andy.
Thanks, Helen. Hope everyone's well. As Helen said, this is a series of webinars 1 through 3, and as we're progressing through them, we're getting more and more detailed in the areas that we cover off. So do feel free, as Helen said, to download the first one, which was an overview of the mobile space, and then we're going to go into a little bit more detail here, but particularly the next session, really, which I believe is next week, so the dates we'll send through, is a deconstruction almost of the misguided website. As I said on the last webinar, it's not going to be a savage attack on the website in any way, shape or form. It's just going to be I guess useful for you guys on the webinar today to look at your brands compared to how we're analysing in real time the misguided journey. So we're going to bring up on the screen share the mobile view as you see the misguided website, and we're just going to go through bit by bit and just critique different areas. We're also, as part of the critique, going to give you some things that the misguided site does really, really well, and we really quite like the site, so it'll be very much a championing of it, not just a sort of a sort of pulling it to pieces, as it were. So hopefully the idea of doing that is the first type of webinar we've done before. We're calling it a live case study, basically, and essentially we're literally going to, not necessarily a script in place, we're just going to sit there and talk you guys through it from sort of top to bottom from a user journey perspective, basically. We're going to keep the microphones open on that webinar as well, so at any point you can jump in and give us your views or ask some questions as we go through. But for the purpose of this particular webinar, we're going to look at some trends. So it would be ideal just to keep yourselves on mute until the end, and then as we did last time, I'll unmute everybody, and then feel free to ask any questions, and we'll do that at the end. And feel free as we go through as well, there is a chat function you can see on the panel there, so please feel free to add in any questions that you've got via that section as well, and we'll come to those towards the end. 35 minutes and then about 10 minutes worth of questions. So again, we're going to try and put as much detail into the next sort of half an hour as we can. It is being recorded, so you will be able to download anything later on. So if you feel that you've only got sort of 35-40 minutes to spare, you need to dive off, then please feel free to go through the recording at a later stage and listen to what we've got to say and what the questions were. I think Helen's going to stay on the line. Helen's one of our marketing content writers here, so she's going to be collecting the questions and coming back online towards the end to send me some of those questions across. Okay, so we'll send you the date for that as well, for the misguided one as well. Okay, aims of this webinar. Oh, by the way, sorry, just before we go, in terms of the misguided one, there are some limited seats, so just make sure you've got your name down for that one. The software that we use only allows us to have a certain amount of people online at any one time, basically, so dive on that as quick as you can. Okay, so the aims of this particular webinar is particularly, first off, we want to give, it's aimed at fashion brands, but the way in which we work is really fashion and retail are quite closely tied in together, but it is the fashion end of the retail spectrum that we're talking about. But I'm sure, I know there's some big retailers on the line, so I'm sure you'll get some tips regardless of our focus on the fashion side of retail. So we want to give you some insight into what the trends are. So what are other fashion brands doing that we feel are of value to you guys online. Some of which you may be doing, some of which you may think it's not relevant to us, but it's at least worth us going through that and presenting them to you so you can make that informed decision, basically. Essentially, we want to sort of help you understand at the end of the webinar there are some tips that we feel are the sort of burning questions, really. So it's almost not just telling you what they are, but hopefully helping you to sort of find out how you can implement them in your brand's activity, essentially. And as I said, at the end there's some tips, really. So hopefully the idea being is that we'll talk through some trends. At the end we'll give you some tips, and so hopefully you'll have something tangible really to go and then at least have some internal discussions, or just to cross-reference against what you're doing at the moment, just to sort of say, these guys hit search who work with a lot of fashion brands across Europe, these are the things that they're talking to their clients about. So we're either way ahead of them, we're either on track with them, or we need to step up to where they are essentially. So hopefully that's what you'll get out of this next half an hour or so. Okay, let's dive straight in. So marketing automation is a big trend generally across all digital marketing, but particularly in mobile. So before we go into how it's relevant to mobile, let's just look at what it is essentially. So the definition is presented there in the text really. It's the process of automating communication between your brand and your customers. So it's a bit of a buzzword at the minute, and it can be applied to literally any digital channel, from email to content to everything else. So we're just going to zoom in on what is relevant to the mobile customer, but essentially the way that the digital marketing spectrum is going and the retail space is going broadly is that they want to personalize the user experience regardless of whether they arrive at a desktop facing website or whether they access your site via a mobile device or whatever that may be. The seamless personalization process is kind of what's key, and the vehicle for that is marketing automation. So let's have a little dive into I guess how can marketing automation help you connect with your customer, particularly from a mobile point of view. Okay, so automation from a mobile point of view can really start to help you engage by personalization. Really, this is the most interesting section to this, and personalization will come across the next couple of slides. Really, what the fashion space particularly need to get better at, in and above maybe particularly potentially larger retailers, is that they need to understand that the user that's arriving at the brand, I guess, from an online source is coming either from mobile or from desktop or even from tablet. So splitting out a mobile phone to a tablet. And once that understanding is in place, is then giving them a very different experience, or certainly tailoring the same experience, rather, that's a better way to phrase it, dependent upon the source of access to the website. So, for example, if you come via a website, do you want via a main desktop website, are you more of a motivated buyer, or are you just browsing? Or we discussed this last time in the overview of mobile in the last webinar. In our experience at the fashion and retail space, a lot of people that use mobile are at the very start of the journey. They're not just going to buy through the website. They're looking at things like style edits. They're looking at the upcoming seasons. They're not necessarily looking at sales, spring, summer 16 sale pages. They don't necessarily are interested in. What they're interested in from a mobile is what's coming up, what the latest trends are, what style edits you're suggesting, maybe information on what celebrities are using your products, as it may be. So understanding the type of customer, and actually also understanding that, okay, so people that use mobile devices, say for example, they don't buy directly from a device on an immediate point of view, but they research looks or style edits or whatever it may be. But also understanding that also mobile customers may well go straight to sale pages and buy, or straight to product pages and buy. So what automation can help you do is you need to put the work in to understand what each of these personas are doing to start with, and you can do that via any analytics package that you've got, right the way down from Google Analytics, right the way up to more sort of detailed and expensive packages. But once you understand what each of those journeys are doing, you can use different automation products to assist. Email automation is a nice easy one, and it sort of leads on to our next point, which is from the Litmus report that stated that 50% of emails are now opened on a mobile device. So from an automation point of view, the first vehicle you should look at, once you understand what each of these personas are doing through the mobile channel, again, split out tablet and mobile is a good tip. Don't just assume a mobile customer does the same thing from a tablet to a mobile device, and then of course to a desktop. Just try and divide those up into 2 or 3 different personas, and we do a lot of persona discussions in these webinars. And then use, in this example, well worth looking at automation of email. So if somebody accesses your website through a mobile phone and signs up to a newsletter via your mobile device, then make sure that they get a mobile-friendly email and they get it on an automated basis. And I don't just mean that that person gets one email every 30 days. Try and understand what they looked at on the site. So if they looked at a particular pair of trousers or a particular outfit combination or a particular pair of running shoes or whatever it may be, try and understand that if that was the journey that that particular user took, look at other journeys across your site from a mobile access point of view and try and present them on an automated basis, some other alternatives. When sites went live many years ago, they started to do this thing where other people that saw this also liked this, and it's quite a sort of a common thing now, particularly in retail sites. So why not set up an automated email process that says users that looked at these particular pair of running shoes also looked at this running vest, this running shorts, these yoga pants, and then this, and start that process as an automation rather than just goes into a newsletter, gets an email every 30 days with the typical stuff that everybody else gets on that database. So, and that's just one example. There are other automation ways of doing things. This is just, it came to light because of the litmus report highlighted that quite a large number of people, and if you think about yourself, will access emails via a mobile device. So really quite interesting that. The other thing, sorry, just to go back to the email side of things, just going through my notes here. One thing I wanted to mention is just make sure that that the emails that you're creating are actually mobile friendly. So I know a lot of the software that people use, the likes of MailChimp, or even if you use HubSpot's email system, they have automatically built-in systems that you can cross-reference your content to various sizes of devices. It's well worth doing that. There's nothing worse than you identifying a mobile persona and putting an email automation process in place with them, and then actually realizing that they can't read the email, or that the images don't load properly, or that all they can see is your logo and nothing else in the email. So it's really important to do some testing before you set up an automation process, because marketing automation can be great if it's done well, but it can be really annoying if all they see every 6 emails that you send every 3 days is you know, it doesn't make sense. So it's well worth bearing that in mind, essentially. And then finally, from an automation process, social posting can be done very easily by email. So there's many automation pieces of software for social, like Hootsuite is a great example, where you can plug all of your channels in essentially to one system like Hootsuite, and then they can post different messages through each of the channels automatically. And again, try and be as personalized as you can. Try and have a campaign in your mind that you want to try and target, have a persona that you want to try and target, and then create automated social posts that target specifically that audience. I think where a lot of retail brands and fashion brands that we work with fall down is they have this huge overarching social campaign that they say, the marketing teams say, we must do social, and so the powers of the business say we must do social, and the marketing teams go, okay, so let's just do social. And I think sometimes thought that goes into what they're trying to achieve with the social channel sort of falls by the wayside, just because the powers that be have said that we need social. So just have a little think about what type of audience is. If it's a mobile audience you're trying to go after, make sure that you don't include big images in your tweets. Just make sure that you know, if you're doing things like polls or surveys as part of your engagement process for social, just make sure if it's automated that it's easy to digest on a mobile device, bearing in mind the character limits, or the visual limit that you've got on a mobile device. But certainly those things are important. The other thing that we go on to mention here, which pieces of software like HubSpot, for example, and I know a few other content management systems allow this, is if you can create personalized landing pages. So if someone arrives on a desktop, they see potentially a different type of landing page than they do through mobile and through tablet. And the reason why this is important is because it gives a seamless experience, essentially, so that they almost get the feeling that the theme of the website stays the same, but regardless of how they access the site, their sort of journey is tailored to them. And a nice easy thing that we do on our website, and feel free to have a little look, it's hitsearchlimited.com, limited spelled out in full. Anybody that signs up for a webinar, so all of you guys, when you go back to our site, if you go back to certain pages of our website, there is a personalized token in there that says, you know, hi George, or hi Andy, or hi Mike, or hi Lisa. Here's some content that we think is relevant to you based on you signing up for a certain webinar. So trying to make personalized content is really good from our point of view, because it means that if you've attended the webinar, we know you're interested in mobile, so why not try and get some mobile content in front of you rather than PPC or whatever else that we do, or SEO content or whatever else that we do. So try and look at that from your own retail perspective. If you, and again, I mentioned this when we spoke at the start, particularly about a personalized experience. So if you know somebody has bought something, for example, a pair of running shoes, then they may well be interested in the running shorts or jogging bottoms or yoga pants or whatever it may be. So when they return to the site, try and give them a different experience, a personalized experience, and essentially what is an automated experience. And the more that you can do automation, generally as a business, but particularly for the mobile channel, the more you do automation for mobile customers, the more success you'll get. And success means ultimately more revenue, but better engagement, which is even better because that means better long-term revenue from your customer base. Just checking my notes, make sure I've not missed anything else that I wanted to mention. No, I don't think so. So next trend is mobile payments. Stat there is really interesting. In terms of 250,000 UK stores are equipped with till points ahead of Apple Pay launch. It's a good nod towards a seamless experience. So people now are focusing mainly on trying to get people to convert via mobile phones, and that's important. And we've just been mentioning that it's actually important to make sure that you understand that some people that access your website via a mobile device are going to be interested in the research side of things and looking at style edits and those kind of things. But actually don't forget that a large volume of people, and more importantly, an increasing volume of people will actually convert through a mobile device. So make sure that they've got all of the payment options, make sure that you understand that people that are traveling to your shop to buy something in store today may well be on their mobile device now and may well want some way of saying, look, there's what I want, can I not just scan that at the till, or can I not just go into a device in store and check stock and those kind of things. So just bear in mind that the mobile platform is used for very different things, not just research, not just Ecommerce, not just buying things through the mobile device, but also various other things like stock levels and those kind of things. They may well be walking past your store, they may well be on the way to the store. So well worth just mentioning that mobile payments is a massive, massive thing, and there's loads of developments in how to make mobile payments more safe and give customers more options to do so, basically. So just make sure, maybe worth having a chat to your IT teams just to make sure that they've got the various new payment methods in place, so Apple Pay, for example, and others, and just make sure that if your competitors have got a certain mobile payment that's nice and easy to use, PayPal, for example, and you guys don't use PayPal, it's well worth doing a trial just to see if it works for you or not, as the case may be. But definitely have a chat to your IT teams about that. Okay, in a bit more detail, so how can you connect with those shoppers who are essentially purchasing and having a purchase experience through their mobile phone? So let's just dig into this a little bit further. So first of all, and I love this phrase, I think it was used maybe by somebody else, but I really quite like it. I'm hoping that Helen's going to come back and tell me it's our idea, because it's a great idea. Basically looking at mobile design and thinking about having a thumb forward design. I love that phrase. So if you think about a big sort of letdown that I've experienced really with retail clients recently is that their mobile sites are just a replica of the desktop sites in terms of the user experience. Whereas how we use a mobile site on a tablet and on a mobile phone is very, very different to a desktop. And what I mean by that is, bear in mind, you don't use your thumb or your index finger. On a desktop, you use a mouse, and the position is very different. And if you think about the size of the mouse pointer, it's very different as well. So we've got to think of a thumb-forward design. And essentially what that means, and it's depicted there in the image, I'm just highlighting with my mouse pointer here. You can see it there really. Try, if you can, there's a comment here that says Apple's iPhone Human Interface Guidelines. Yes, there are human interface guidelines from Apple, and they suggest 44 by 44 pixels for finger-friendly mobile designs. So have a think about it. If you've got a call to action, buy now, sign up to this, click here for men's wear, click here for women's wear, any sort of call to action on a mobile site, if you've just constrain the sizes of your desktop site onto a mobile screen, then these call to actions might be difficult or even impossible to click on, which affects the user journey. So from a payment point of view, bear in mind that if you're trying to get if you've got someone all the way to the basket, or user journey has been fantastic, they've gone to the basket and they just want to click buy now, but or they can't enter their payment details, or something else is causing them some issues because of design, just bear in mind that there are guidelines that Apple produce that you might want to look at. So just type into Google Apple's iPhone human interface guidelines, and there'll be a full list of what they are essentially. But bear in mind, if we're left-handed, then or right-handed really, that the only really sort of finger that we use as such is a thumb and possibly maybe an index finger, maybe a forefinger. So just bear in mind that most people's hands are of a similar size, give or take a few people. So bear in mind that they will want a very specific experience when they're trying to buy something from your website. Following on from that, checkout process would need to be clean and clear, even more so on a mobile site. Bear in mind, most people access a mobile site and try and buy something when either they're in a car, someone else is driving them of course, but they're in a car on the way to work, they're on a train, they're on a tram, they're on a tube. They are somewhere where, generally speaking, that they're not necessarily at a desktop, and hence why they're using their phones a lot of the time. So bear that in mind when you're trying to get people to pay on your mobile device. And bearing in mind, hence the fish analogy, that people's attention span generally on a website, on a desktop website over the years has decreased massively. So especially with fiber broadband coming in, if they have to wait for 1 or 2 seconds, people's attention span will leave very quickly. So it's worth bearing that on a mobile device, it's even less than that. So as it says here, according to research, human attention span's fallen since 2000 from 12 seconds to just 8 seconds in 2006, and it's reducing from there. So if you almost only got a small window to capture someone's payment information, payment details, and get them to convert and move them into the part of your customer retention cycle, which is getting them to repeat buy. You've got a small window to do that, so certainly make sure that you grasp that with everything that you've got essentially. And then finally, really, I guess having multiple, we've already touched on this with PayPal particularly, but try and look at your user journey not from finding the site necessarily, so not the marketing bit. Assume the marketing piece has been done and you've got a lot more people to your website. You've got them looking at men's trousers, you've got them looking at women's dresses, they've clicked on a size, they know the colour, they've typed in their address, they're going through to the process to pay. Just look at every point from somebody putting something in a basket, specifically for mobile and tablet, and split those two disciplines aside, and look at whether there's any issues or any ways that you can streamline that, bearing in mind what I've just said about attention span. So I'm not suggesting PayPal is the solution, but certainly have a look at the length of time, compare it to desktop, look at your drop-off rates on desktop on the purchase process, and try and see if that mirrors your mobile and tablet, and just see if there's anything unique about tablet to mobile and mobile to tablet. Google Analytics, can do this very, very easily. It doesn't need any super expensive pieces of kit, although they may speed things up and save you time, but you can look at bounce rates and drop-off rates of purchase funnels through GA very, very well. So particularly in fashion and particularly in retail, people's attention span are probably even less, because you've got some really good companies like Misguided, who are going to start to dissect in the next webinar, that are doing things really, really well. They've got some areas of improvement, but they're doing things really, really well. So just make sure that the very basics that you maybe looked at your website's user experience last year or maybe 6 months ago, just make sure that you do the same for mobile and tablet, and just make sure that all of that's tied in. Okay, a bit of a buzzword, but Kissmetric came up with something earlier this year, and they said that we need to move away from customer-centric and move more towards customer-obsessive. And this is kind of going back to the sort of theory that people now are really not just attached to the mobile devices, whether it's phone or iPad or Galaxy or whatever it may be, notepads, and they're obsessed with them. And I kind of was reading the article on this and thinking, I'm not sure whether we're obsessed with them, but if you think about it, and I just think about myself, so when I wake up in the morning, the phone's been on charge next to the bed, the first thing I do is check emails, then I maybe check social media, maybe look at the news, maybe look at the weather if I'm out and about that day. Then it goes, after showering and all that kind of stuff. Leaving the house, it goes straight into my pocket. It's normally back in my hand by the time I've got to the car. I put it away, journey into work. The first thing I do when I'm walking up the stairs is probably just make sure no emails have come in, as if people can't do without me for half an hour. But the point being is that journey right away through to bedtime, when that phone gets plugged back in right by the side of my bed and close my eyes and go to sleep, it's near me, and no other marketing medium is as close to me as that. Television isn't, radio isn't, online display, email isn't really without the mobile device as a function. So bear that in mind, and I kind of can see where they're going really. So let's just take a bit of a deeper dive into that really. And just what they sort of said here from a Kissmetrics point of view. They said few other things are as pivotal to sealing the deal as a device that customers carry with them everywhere. Figuring out how you make that impact is something that companies are still working on, but you can bet it will be the customer, not the corporation, that powers these decisions. So I guess what they're saying really is, and this is what we're talking about all along, and we've mentioned data and the analysis of data in previous webinars, and we'll touch on it in this webinar and also in Miss Guided's webinar, is that trying to find where your customers have issues with will drive your mobile strategy forward quicker than copying somebody else or trying to second guess. Even looking at erroneous data is a mistake that I've seen happen recently with retailers. So they base their mobile journey decisions on data that's not accurate or data that they want to see, if that makes sense. So just look at the only tips that I can give, and the biggest impact we've had on fashion conversion rates, for example, and driving fashion strategy for the mobile channel, is look at the journey to the basket, first of all, and then look at the journey from the basket to completion. And just try and make those two as swift as possible, make them as easy as possible, make them as personalized as possible, automate as much as you can, but constantly look at data, constantly analyze, and constantly understand what personas are doing when they approach the site, particularly in this example, in this webinar series, from a mobile point of view. So really interesting part of that, and at the end point here, which I mentioned, we do mention data. It really is just to start to look at you know, which elements of your mobile strategy as a whole are automated and which aren't, essentially. So start with the data, start with the personas, start to understand what they're doing with the site, and then go from there. Okay. So let's jump on. Okay, so we just want to dig a little bit deeper into the customer-centric side of things. It's a bit of a big topic, really, when you start to think a bit about, okay, so how do we become customer obsessive? It sounds a bit of one of those words that a lot of marketing people sort of throw out there and sort of disappear under a rock. So let's just look at it in three separate stages, essentially. So the first stage is get to know your mobile customers. So starting to look, I've already mentioned about data, look at Google Analytics, but particularly look at how they buy. So a lot of the products that you sell will follow similar paths to purchase. So if you know, for example, through your mobile customer that a certain type of product is most interesting to a specific persona, then monitor that persona and update as they go. What we found a lot with our fashion and retail clients is that they tend to do a whole body of research, listen to what we've said. So we say you need to understand your mobile personas, and they go, great, okay. So they go away, or we help them with some research and say, right, there's your mobile personas, and that's what we've identified them. But the piece of research could have been identified in spring, summer, for example, and that persona might be doing something very different in autumn, winter. So what we always advise is at least a quarterly update of personas. So know your customers on a quarterly basis, even ones that are actual customers, so not just potential customers, but even those that are buying off you. Try and build a map or a plan over a 3 or 4 quarterly basis. So at the end of the year, you understand that people that started buying trousers or a particular style, maybe further down the line they change that. And so your automation from email, from social, from the personalization of their experience changes, and we're not just sending them pictures of trousers constantly throughout the year, even when it's sunny outside type thing. So certainly in terms of being customer obsessive, be obsessed about knowing who they are, and don't maybe just make some assumptions on who you think they are, basically. Certainly mobile personas, we've touched on this, I won't harp too much on about this, but there is, I think it was in a previous series of webinars that we did for the fashion space, but there is a website called makemypersona.com, or if you just type in Make My Persona into Google, I think it's .com, but it's a free tool that HubSpot give you that guides you through the process of making a persona, and the output is you can choose a picture of that person, and it gives you a nice cool name. So for example, it might be someone that, you know, Fashion Felicity or whatever it may be, and you may have different personas that you can build up for mobile, different for tablet, but that piece of software just guides you through it. It's a free piece of kit. I really recommend you just compare who you're targeting at the moment, your audience targeting, as it is at the minute, with your output of the persona work that you do through Make My Persona, and just let me know what that is, just of interest really, and see how you get on with that. So we'll try, Helen is still on the line, so if you can just try and dig out that URL and put it in the chat, if you don't mind, that'd be great. So it'll be in the chat section shortly. So definitely look at your mobile buyer personas. And then step 3, don't forget them. So as I said in step 1, really just make sure that on a regular basis that you're and that you don't sort of just say, right, well, you know, Fashion Felicity that bought this particular pair of trousers last year is bound to be interested in the same trousers this year. That won't be the case. Things definitely move on. Okay, another trend, final trend, wearable tech. Now, I was surprised when I got a notification from Google, from Groupon the other day, that you can now have a watch of no particular brand, but they were selling a watch from $59.99 that had been reduced to $19.99, and it did every single function that the Android and the Apple's version of a watch, of a wearable tech, does. So, and there's an article that's been published by Forbes that states that that the actual wearable tech industry will treble inside the next 5 years to a whopping 245 million devices by 2019. Now, if that's not a trend in the mobile space, I don't know what. And we've been talking about a personalized experience for mobile in addition to tablet. What we'll then start to talk about is a personalized experience for the likes of watches or any other wearable tech, Google Glass or whatever it may be. So start to think about Christmas time this year. One of my big predictions is most of your friends will either be wearing or wanting some form of wearable tech, particularly a watch. And the designs are getting cooler all the time, they're looking better, the functionality is working, the operating systems and the watches particularly are getting faster and smoother, you can do more. It ties into the healthy lifestyle things, you get all your fitness apps on there and everything else. So certainly start to think about that. If you've got a new version of your mobile platform that's due for reworking, you know, before the sort of the big busy Christmas period or even thereafter in Jan, Feb, definitely start to factor in wearable tech into that really. It's definitely a trend that is well and truly underway already in 2016. Okay, coming towards the end now, here's the 3 tips. So hopefully you found it useful, but this just sums up a few things really. One tip from a mobile point of view is to use Google Alerts. It's not a new tip, it's not something that's revolutionary, but it's something that people seem to have forgotten a little bit about, and we use quite a bit really. Keep an eye on competition via and what they're doing on the mobile strategies via Google Alerts. You can plug in keywords, you can plug in company names, you can plug in whatever you need to, and it'll drop you an email whenever anything crops up. A lot of the time when people are really proud, again, going into misguided example, people are really proud when they do something with the mobile strategy. They're not so proud when they do things with the desktop strategy for some reason. So, you know, when you update a desktop website, nobody goes to the market and says, we've done a great desktop, come and have a look. It's just kind of expected now. So Google Alerts will allow you to look at your competition and see what they're doing. And again, even if it's just from a benchmark point of view, it's well worth just getting yourself set up. Just type in Google Alerts into Google if you don't know what that is, and it's nice and easy. Tip 2, sign up to content resource BuzzSumo. It's a really cool piece of kit, and there is a free offering. There is a paid-for offering that gives you more, but certainly the free offering is great. So you just type in essentially a keyword or a website, and it'll just start going and find content basically that is relevant to that. So you can start to look at your mobile websites. You can start to look at keywords that might be related to mobile design, mobile user interface. mobile conversion rate, those kind of keywords, and you can start to see if any of your competitors are coming up there, and it will particularly help you keep up to date with the latest trends in that space, basically. So BuzzSumo is a good one. Just type that into Google. I think it's buzzsumo.com though. And then finally, apologies for ringing the bell, but data is everything. So the first thing that we do when we're looking at personas and we're looking at improving user journeys through mobile is to look at the data. And if there isn't any data, first thing to do is to put data in place. So, you know, if it's a brand, sometimes it's a startup brand, the first thing we do is install Google Analytics or Marin or DC Storm or any or DoubleClick or any of the bigger pieces of kit, and try and understand what these customers, potential customers, are doing to find the site, and then what they're doing on the site. Those two pillars of the mobile strategy are so important to understand, and you can't do that without data. Okay, I think we're coming up to 37 minutes, so we're pretty much bang on time. Thanks for listening. Just before we go into questions, we are offering your fashion site free mobile analysis. So we'll just jump on the phone with you and we'll do what we're going to do with Misguided next week, I think it is. We're going to do that next week. We'll do that specifically for your website particularly. So if you've already got an Ecommerce website, you want us to have a little look at it in advance of next week or even after next week, then the people, I think there's about 15 people on this call, so any of the 15 brands that are on this call, then the offer is to you guys, not, as I mentioned last time, please don't, if you, there's some big retailers on the line, please don't send it to to everyone in your company. You know, if you've got menswear, women's wear, baby wear, whatever it may be, please don't send it to everybody, because obviously my time is limited, but certainly for the attendees on this call and for this webinar, then definitely happy to do that. Just let us know. We'll send out a link to that so you can register your interest. Okay, let me bring in, so hopefully you found that useful. Let me bring in Helen. Helen, do you want to unmute yourself and just, I think you've got some questions, I think, coming up.
Yeah, I've actually just put the link to the Make My Persona as well in the chat to everyone, so hopefully everyone can see that as well.
Oh, great, thanks for that.
Okay, so we've got two questions that have come from Twitter, so we'll just do one at a time. So the first one says, I've been reading about promoted pin advertising on Google Maps. Would this eventually be something my fashion brand should look to implement in order to connect with its mobile customers?
Really good question, and certainly it points towards a big trend, again, topically enough, in 2016 for Google local listings. So what used to be called the business listings, and now is the local listings, is particularly if you've got a retail presence, a bricks and mortar presence, is really important. There is a lot of different types of marketing that you can do through Google Local. We use a piece of kit called Moz Pro Local, and that essentially does a lot of it for our clients, but it allows you to sort of, you know, identify your you know, particularly put a flag in the map of where your head office is. It allows you to control how that message comes across. You can control your phone numbers and all the bits and pieces. Also look at, slightly off topic, look at what we call schema markup language as well. And what that means basically is that you can control the information that comes in the organic listings relating to your website. So a lot of people talk about the 4-pack and 6-pack, and do some search on that. We probably won't have time to, but we may do in a different webinar. But there's a lot of real estate that you can claim through local and through your website by using the schema markup language, and also claiming and doing more with your pins and the presentation of your company in Google local listings. So definitely do some research on that. If you've got any questions on that, we'll probably handle that outside of the webinar. So yeah, drop me a note, and hopefully that answers that question for that person.
Okay, the second question, how would you suggest we go about choosing a trend to focus on?
Wow, massive question really. I guess it depends on, going back to what I said earlier, the two pillars is for marketing strategy for mobile is how you get people to the site and what they do on the site to purchase. So I think it would depend on how each of your brands are struggling with each of those. So if the issue is getting people to the mobile site, then I would probably start to look at some automation and start to look at some traffic driving tools to assist with that. If it's that you're happy with the amount of people that come to the site but they're not doing anything on the site, then I'd maybe start to look at some pieces of software that assist you with moving people down the buying journey. Now, whether that's personalized tokens across the website that give people a bit more of a personal feel, whether it's shortening the journey. It really depends on where the issues are. So to answer that question, I'd say, again, apologies for banging on the drum, but go back to data. Look at where the data is telling you the issues are, and then start from there. So if anybody's got a more specific question about that, drop-off rates or whatever it may be, then if you can give me some more information about that, I'd be able to give you a better response if that makes sense. Any more that you've noticed on social media, Helen?
No, that's all we've got from social media, just those two.
Okay, just looking at the chat first to see if anybody has any questions. If anybody that's live on the line wants to unmute themselves and ask me a question, then feel free to do so now while I'm checking the chat. No, doesn't seem to be anything in the chat. Last chance for anybody online. Any questions at all? No? Okay, great. So just last thing to sign off. So just bear in mind the webinar, jump back on off mute, is it next Wednesday, I think?
Yeah, next Wednesday at 11 AM.
11 AM, and we're going to follow up from this email with the login details and whatnot, aren't we?
Yep.
Okay, great. So hopefully, please feel free to send any questions you've got in response to the email that will follow up with the recording of this webinar. And I really hope to see you on the webinar next week, the misguided deconstruction. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for your time, and hope to speak to you soon.